All right, everybody, welcome. We are here with Jamie Robinson of MotoGeo. You may have remembered him speaking at the Progressive International Motorcycle Show this past year about his travels around the world. So we're here to talk a little bit about adventure, how to get out on a motorcycle, how to prepare yourself for riding long distances, whether it be a couple days, a couple weeks, months, or just take a whole year off on the road. Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy.
So let's just get right into it. Ask a couple really fun questions. Let's say, what are the 5 best pieces of advice you could advise? What are the 5 best pieces of advice you could give someone who wants to travel a long distance on the motorcycle?
Yeah, good question. Number 1, be spontaneous.
Okay.
So just no excuses. Get out there and go for it. We can all make loads of excuses of why we don't have certain things in place for us to go on a motorcycle ride. But so be spontaneous and just get out there. Second, you only need realistically any motorcycle. Any motorcycle will do for you to get out there and enjoy the experience of riding and freedom and everything that comes with it. So I don't care what motorcycle people have got. Sometimes people tell me they haven't got an adventure bike to go on an adventure. You're like, it doesn't matter what you have.
Yeah. 2
wheels and an engine, and you can have a lot of fun. One of the best adventures I ever had was buying a $200 piece of rubbish in New York and riding it across America. And it was a great experience. It cost me next to nothing.
You talked about that even when we were at Adventure Out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that for me will be my number 1 and 2. 3, realistically and honestly, really just buy the best equipment you can possibly afford to buy when it comes to your safety. So jacket, helmet, gloves, boots, and then hopefully some pants. All of this stuff costs quite a lot of money, so you've just got to try and build it up when you can, but buy the best safety equipment you can. Number 4, go where there's no cars. Go where the squiggly lines are. Go where the road is interesting and twisty. I mean, just stay off the unbeaten path is my advice. That's where the nicest people are. That's where the best views and scenery is, and the best motorcycling roads, to be honest with you, is just get out of town. Get out of town.
Paper map or GPS.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes I just wing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm on my way to somewhere and I'll go past a road and I'm like, quick U-turn, that looks like fun. And then next minute I'm heading off in a different direction. And then it takes me 2 hours to get to this place that was only half an hour down the road. But if it's taken me a few hours and I've had a great time, I don't care, And then number 5, best advice, I would say, toying up a few here, but share the experience.
How? What's the best way?
For me, taking people on the back of your bike, getting people excited to just get away for the weekend, just somehow try and show that motorcycles are anything other than just what they're portrayed badly by Hollywood. Just see motorcycles running from the cops everywhere and ridden by idiots with no helmets, or what you see a lot of on YouTube, which is just people again behaving pretty badly on motorbikes sometimes. Right. So it's anything but that.
So not so much share your experience on Instagram or Facebook, but more or less share it with another person. That's actually the best, and I think that's a great way to get someone involved in motorcycling myself as well. What skills do you think are just really, really important for people to have once they get on a bike? Obviously there's new rider advice, but also just pertaining to traveling.
Well, to be honest with you, the same thing that still goes in my head when I get on my motorcycle, and that's like, be safe.
Mm-hmm. What's the best way to do that?
I don't think it's from anybody who's able to walk across the street without getting hit by a vehicle, and anyone who gets in any type of vehicle and is able to get from A to B without having a prang knows exactly how to be safe.
Right.
So whether you're on a motorcycle, a bicycle, or walking across the road, it's the same factors, right? Look for dangers, try to avoid them.
Pay attention.
And motorcycling is exactly the same, and that's exactly right. Pay attention, because if you're paying attention, things usually go right.
Also, probably on the other flip side of that is know when you're not paying attention, right? Knowing your
Well,
own
with the
limitations.
motorcycle, there's not much room for not paying attention, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
And the longer you do it and the more experience you have, the easier it is to do all of the things that, I guess, eventually just come naturally. But you always need to pay attention no matter how much experience you have.
And recognizing when you're like not fully there. It's
Oh
time
yeah.
to get off.
Oh
you know,
yeah.
It's time to,
oh
it's
yeah.
time to
Like
break.
I still go through that myself. But like sometimes, like you get fatigued riding a motorcycle, and you, like you said, you have to really recognize that and react to it. And if you need to pull over and take a break, just do it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, the motorcycling side of it is just, it is more fatiguing than driving a car, because you've got less of your luxuries around you. So, your body's sometimes fighting to stay warm. Sometimes, you can't switch your mind off because you're concentrating so hard navigating through traffic or around corners or whatever it might be. But you've got to recognise when you're tired and take a break when you can. Like, especially with adventure riding, because you would be doing it for days and days and days and days and days. And sometimes when you're doing it for so long, you get really jaded on day 6 and day 7.
Yeah.
And you're full of energy on day 1 and 2. So, you just recognise when you're tired. But, most of the time, for me, this might sound really funny, but I can remember riding all the way through France. And it was a long ride. I'd ridden all the way from the Isle of Man. I was tired. It was cold. It was miserable. And I was just trying to get to a point that day where I could set my tent up and then just start again tomorrow on this great road. And I got to this great road, and then I decided, actually, I'm going to just make my way up it a little ways and find a better place to camp, because I was quite close to this city. And I started making my way up it, and like I said, I was tired and fatigued from riding all day. Went round a few corners, and unbelievable, I just had so much energy. I rode the entire thing all night, just couldn't stop riding and was just so energized. So sometimes, your energy comes from where you are and what you see in your experiences. And, I try and avoid the motorway or the highway as much as possible, because it's just not entertaining for me and doesn't excite me, and actually makes motorcycling really boring. And at that point, I'd probably rather be in a car if I was just going to sit on the freeway.
Right.
So I try and avoid all roads like that, and go around the back way and go where, the main traffic used to go before freeways were built. Mm-hmm. Well, if you go on those roads, there's actually hardly anything on them these days.
Like old interstates.
Yeah, just like riding up over an Angeles Crest rather than going on the 101 or...
Yeah, the 210
Yeah, exactly. Just go up and over Angeles Crest, you'll be tired from the excitement rather from the boredom. You know what I mean? So, it's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, even the ways that I've even saw it too is that, even when I'm tired and I want to stop, if it's at a gas station, you might have a nice little happy social accident, right? You meet somebody and they're like, oh, what are you doing? You talk and you're like, I remember I rolled into Portland once and it was freezing, Coos Bay, 9 p.m., wore the wrong gloves, came into a 7-Eleven. The lady's like, hon, you look cold. You want some coffee? I was like, I'd love some coffee. She's like, don't worry, it's on the house. And it's just, you find this kindness with so many people when you're on a bike that you just don't get when you're in a car too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've travelled around the world on my motorcycle and found amazing people everywhere, from Zimbabwe to, Colombia. And you're one removed. You're quite vulnerable on a motorcycle. So I think people already recognise that in a way. And as long as you don't come into town with a bunch of bikers looking scary, making a load of noise and intimidating people, you come in with just you and your buddy or just yourself. Yeah. There's usually people right there to welcome you, help you with whatever you need, and give you some good advice. I always try and speak with the locals as well, because they know where to eat, they know where to camp, they know what's safe. So you get into some towns, just speak to a few locals, and it usually really helps out.
That'd be the best thing, I think, for kids getting out of high school. How everyone goes backpacking through Europe was the last century was the thing to do after high school, before college. I think everyone should grab a motorcycle and travel the U.S. for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very difficult to get people into motorcycling sometimes if they've not been brought up around two wheels. And, if you're talking about a younger generation, it's really important that, we recognise the the younger generation need to get on two wheels.
Right.
You know, from kids right the way up through teenage years. And I mean, seriously, man, motorcycles are pretty damn awesome. So are bicycles, and they're really close together.
Yeah. It's like easy to make one hop to the next.
I believe so.
We'll talk about that right at the end after we talk a little bit about adventure, because adventure is so just key to a lot of what we do as motorcyclists, no matter what you ride.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that you never leave home without when you go on an adventure? Because you're always globe-trotting everywhere.
Yeah, I've been pretty attached, obviously. I mean, to be quite honest with you, if I'm going to go with my 3 things, I'll go with my gear. And that'll be, you know, I love my Alpine Star jacket, I love my RI helmet, you know. So those are 2 takes that I'll take with me straight away. And on my adventures too, being able to communicate when I ride, so my Cardo Pack Talk, I'm able to call the missus on the road, I'm able to talk to my cameraman. I don't have to scream and shout anymore and do these ridiculous hand signals where someone thinks that you need to go to the bathroom and you're actually just telling them you need some gas, you know. So whatever it is, but you know, I think also, you know, I don't go anywhere these days without, I suppose, my phone, because it has my camera, and then I'm able to capture, you know, moments on the road, plus my video camera. There's so many things, man, once you start thinking about the top 3. But, you know, I always, for me, I've got a bit of a noise going off there. I'll just let that stop. You might need to edit this a little.
It's okay. Little beepy. But I like that you actually said your gear.
Yeah, but for me, it is my gear, because, to be honest with you, that's what, when I'm on the road, is what keeps me safe, and it also is one of those things that I just don't think about.
Right.
And that's what I love about my gear, is that I don't see it as like, oh, I'm putting my gear on. It's just a part of me and the motorcycle. So, you know, my jacket, all my gear is usually pretty well used, and that's because it's, you know, it's just a part of me.
Right. Well, that's good. Those are, I mean, I think it's, most people would be like, you know, I can't go anywhere without, you know, this photo or this little good luck trinket. But it's really the most important thing is what protects you, you know. This is kind of this is a hard or strange question, but what are some things that you can do to, I think we talked about this already, but what are some things that you can do to ensure your relative safety out on the road? Because, you know, safety is not an absolute.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just ride within your ability. And it's really important, if you ride within your own ability, and most people know their own ability on a motorcycle, is just ride within your own ability and you're going to be safe.
Right.
It's when you actually, you know, I see accidents happen where a bunch of people get into a group, one's faster than the other one gets pulled along, and next minute he flies off the edge of the road. So, you know, ride within your ability, and when it actually, you know, you feel like it's all getting a little bit too fast and too scary, it's probably because it is. So recognise that. Don't try and be brave. Brave usually leads to stupidity on a motorcycle, so...
I have fallen victim to that before in my life.
Yeah, but you know, it's part of the learning curve, but it's really important, because I want people to be safe when they ride motorcycles. I don't want them to be getting hurt. So for that, you know, and then you know, for me as well, I just think it's really important that you get as much experience as you can. So you've got to get out there and ride, but so you got to, you know, pay attention. We mentioned, wear good gear, and just ride within your ability.
So you think for people who are like new to riding or kind of just starting out, you know, like you did say that just, you know, any bike is an adventure bike. Just get out and ride it. Do you think, like, from where you are as a person, you know, as a rider, you know, where you live and where you kind of reside, you should either take it slow, go gung-ho and just go on a trip, or should you kind of like maybe expand that radius of how far you ride and where you go?
Hey man,
no hard and fast rules?
Yeah, there is absolutely, and that's the whole beauty of adventure riding, in my opinion, is there is no set rule.
Good.
There is no set rule, just frigging go. And the hardest thing for any rider to do, and it is even the same for me, and I've been doing it for many years, is actually just going. Because you've got to leave something behind, and it's always just, you know, so for example, you know, now I don't like leaving my family, my wife and my boy, I don't like leaving my dog at my house, you know, all of these worries I have. But once I'm on the road, to be quite truthful, I don't have hardly any of them. I think about them at certain points in the day, but when I'm at home, I'm thinking about them all the time. There's loads of excuses of why I give myself, loads of excuses of why I shouldn't be going on this adventure. However, make it happen. So, you've got to be spontaneous. You've really just got to get out there and go, and just don't have too many rules. There are no rules. Just go and go to whatever makes you happy. Like sometimes you really do need to escape. Sometimes it's good to set yourself a target and just try and get there. That's kind of quite meaningful. So sometimes it's great to just try and tick off one of your bucket lists that you've always wanted to do and never done, and sick of never doing it. So it's just one of those, right, I'm doing this and I'm going to get there.
Sur.
Yeah.
Do it. Go take the weekend.
Yeah. Or just pick a frigging restaurant where you've always wanted to eat and you've never stopped, and just go for a ride and make it an evening, and just make it an epic or a weekend or whatever it is, man. It's just like, I don't know, there's a lot can be gained as well by just getting out there and tasting that sensation of freedom, and then coming home and being a lot happier with where you are at and what you've just done, and your next week will go a lot better because you were able to get out there and break away from the norm. You're concentrating so hard on a motorcycle, there's not a lot of area for you to bring anything else into your mind.
Right. Yeah.
So with that, is a beautiful kind of moment that when you're off your motorcycle. Thank you, buddy. Some biscuits and gravy's just arrived. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. So the adventure side, there are no rules, and no matter what kit you've got, it's okay. It's good enough, right? So, for example, I just did a ride the other week with a guy. He bought a motorcycle off Craigslist for $1,000. I went off riding with him. He had just some old school, 20-year-old riding gear. There was, he didn't care. And we went and rode trails all day. He had as much fun as anybody out there. He was learning as he was riding as well, because we were on technical stuff. And he was riding around on a flat tire the entire day. And yeah, so dude, he had a great time. I had a great time. I rode his bike. It was, it was epic. And there was so many things about that which should have been, that's not a good idea. Thank you, bud. That's not a good idea, or time to turn around and go back to the van. But we just kept going, and we had a great time. So, I don't know. There's so much about giving yourself an excuse.
Yeah. Speaking of excuses or
why
even fear.
not.
Keep recording this. It's definitely gonna need some splicing. I like people do make a lot of excuses why they can't travel or they can't go do something. But once you get out there on the road, you said the guy that you were riding with had a flat tire.
Yeah.
Right? So what do you think are 3 really important technical things for people to try to learn how to do so they can solve problems out on the road? Like, I'm not mechanically inclined. Something goes wrong with my engine, I think I'm screwed, right?
Yeah, me too.
But
probably.
So,
you know what I mean? And same with the electrical stuff. There's only so much you can do. However, it's good to have some tools. It's good to know a few basics.
Such as?
Okay, so basics for anybody to know is, chain. So when your chain's in good condition, when it needs oiling, when it needs adjusting. Those things are really important, and they're really easy to understand, and they're very simple to maintain. But if you don't maintain them and you don't understand them, you can find yourself in a whole load of trouble. You can find yourself with worn out parts. You can find yourself even with the chain snapping, locking up and throwing you off. So chain's really important.
Okay.
Tires, that's also very important. Knowing when a tire's worn out, when it's misshaped, when it's too soft, when it's too hard, and definitely how to change a flat or get yourself out of trouble. And then I suppose brakes too. Understanding that when the brakes are working well, understand when they're not, understand the feel that's coming back from your braking, and understand how to adjust them too, and when things are worn out. So, those are my top 3. And if you understand those kind of like top 3 basics there of motorcycle, very simple maintenance, at least you'll be safe. And anything that goes wrong with the engine, unless it's a simple 2-stroke engine, most people are not going to be able to fix it. You're going to be going into a specialist mechanic, and I would be too,
So just like your
those that have cars, make sure that they're maintained regularly. If you don't know what you're doing, have someone look at it.
Exactly, and also
do that little checklist before you actually run out and go out on a trip.
Yeah, and also put oil in the engine. That's pretty important. And,
maybe also know how the fuel and the range of your motorcycle as well.
Yeah, and also just like little stupid things like making sure your lubricants are topped up so that you've got enough water in the radiator, and you've definitely got enough oil in the engine, and your tire pressures are within range.
So let's switch gears quickly a little bit, just talk about another topic which I think you and I are both incredibly passionate about, which is getting kids involved in motorcycling or cycling or just on two wheels in some sense or fashion. And you have a child, you have a kid. And naturally, you are a motorcyclist, so it kind of comes with the family territory. But what would you say to parents? How to get them involved with two wheels? And how to alleviate some of their fears about my kids.
I think honestly, the most simple answer to that is the beautiful invention of the balance bike. And the balance bike is just, if nobody knows what a balance bike is, it's literally a bicycle with no pedals, and the seat is low enough so that the rider can propel himself around by just using his legs and also come to a stop. And they're really great fun for kids, because my boy got on one, I think when he was like 2.5, 3, and he rode the wheels off it until they literally fell off. And then we got him a bigger one, and he just spins on that all the time. And he's not shown any interest in pedaling. And we've tried to get him to pedal, and he just doesn't. He's not interested. He doesn't even want to ride his Strider if we put pedals on it. He just wants to freewheel and maneuver and corner. And
doesn't that make for a lazy child, though?
Dude, he's ripped. Are you kidding me? I think he's using more energy. He drags his bike everywhere, up and down the hills, and just wants to spin down and just use his feet to stop. I mean, it's scary to some degree, but at the same time, he's very close to like what he's doing on a motorcycle. He just doesn't have a throttle. He puts his feet up when he's coming downhill. He does all of those things, so he's got the balance right. And so going from that to a motorcycle is really easy.
How old is your boy?
7.
7.
He's been riding a motorcycle since he was 4.
What bike do you get for a kid?
The Osset.
Oh, the Osset, the electric child bike.
But now there's, like the Stasics bike. It's basically like a balance bike with a little battery in it, and the kid uses the throttle hand to propel themselves forward. It's pretty much an electric motorcycle in so many levels, and yet they can put their feet on the floor. It's super light. When I was a kid, and my dad got me the motorcycles he got me and all of these kind of things, there was at a stage where the bikes were heavy and they burnt you. I got burnt quite a few times as a kid, just crashing and getting stuck on stuff, or putting my hand on the engine, or burning my leg, or whatever. I mean, it just happened. Where there's none of that with kids' electric bikes. There's no fuel, there's no stinky gasoline to make sort of fit to spill out or whatever, and there's no hot parts. So the electric bike scene for the kids is definitely the way forward. It's super easy, super fun.
So what's the next step? So your boy's 7.
Yeah, the next step for my boy, really. I mean, he already rides on the back of me and loves it. Is really just to get him, once we can introduce him to a bigger motorcycle and get him riding, and see if he enjoys it. There's no pressure from my side. He already enjoys his two wheels.
What would you put him on once he wants to get on something motorized? And
I think that honestly the first step is a Stasic.
Okay.
Which is a balance bike with the battery powered assist. So it's literally a throttle battery powered, like I mentioned, and it's so close to a motorcycle. It's not much different than the Zero, really. It's got a battery, it's got a throttle, it goes forward, you've got a brake. It's a small electric bike.
And then after the Stasic,
I think you pick and choose whatever you want. Then
like a little CRF, like
then if you're dealing with an engine, and then you're dealing with clutches and gears, and then that's a whole different realm.
Right.
My first couple of motorcycles were just automatic, and then my dad, I think when I was around about 8 or 9, got me a bike with gears. And he said I just rode around in first gear for a year before I figured out how to change gear. You know what I mean? But that's all part of learning the curve and learning how to ride. I think just trying to keep your kid involved,
And they're kids are. I think a lot of. I mean, personally, I think you see this kind of generalized, stereotyped in in our society that we coddle our kids a little bit, we protect them a little too much, and kids are incredibly resilient, and they're very smart. They're not lazy, and they get things. They adapt their hand-eye coordination faster than we can.
Hey man, it's not that long ago since we were kids, right? So
some of us still act like it. Right?
Yeah, I try to every day. It keeps me young. But like seriously, it's that's all it is. Just introduce your kids to some activities that they might enjoy. For me, I'm a huge fan of the Strider because it's really helped my son develop. It's given him confidence. It's given him strength in his core, and it's given him balance and great and to high coordination and stuff. I mean, but from that is I've been involved with the Strider. I've been in contact with the Strider founder, and what's really interesting is that they're now they are getting Striders into schools and part of the education system, so that kids, it can be a part of their national curriculum, it can be a part of their PE.
That'd be more fun. That'd be the most fun PE ever.
Yeah, and exactly, but that makes a whole lot more sense, teaching a kid how to ride a bike than it does how to do star jumps.
Believe me.
Or jump through hoops.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know, but most of us are still jumping through hoops later on in life. But, you get my meaning. But like for me, that's that is really exciting. For me, is what the Strider balance bike that was originally made for. He was a motorcyclist that designed it for his kid. I don't know if you know the story behind it, but it's an awesome story that a motorcycling obsessed father had a little boy and bought him all the two-wheel toys he could possibly buy him, because obviously he wanted to get him started, and he just wasn't interested in any of them. So he built him this little bike, I guess, to get around on, and that was the first Strider, and his kid was off and away, and now his son's 16 and goes riding with him. So where it started from at a 2-year-old with this tiny little balance bike, and my son was the same. He literally rode the wheels off it. Until the bearings all collapsed inside the wheels, and the wheels literally just started rattling, and it was just like, okay, time for another one.
It's such a great way for fathers and sons, and fathers and daughters, and mothers and daughters, and mothers and sons. To be so interconnected with each other.
Absolutely.
In their life.
I mean, come on, it's just like the great outdoors, being around Mother Nature, and spinning around on a motorcycle or a bicycle is super fun. So I don't know. I think that getting kids on bikes really important, and then keeping them on two wheels is actually more important, because what actually seems to happen in a lot of life is that a kid learns to ride a bike, rides a bike for a few years, and then gives it up, and then eventually when they can, they buy a car and just sit on their ass in a box.
I remember when I moved out of my house, my dad couldn't afford to get me a car, and he's like, here's a little Kawasaki Eliminator. He's like, off you go. And I was like, what?
Yeah, great.
I rode that thing out to Chino Hills. For those that don't know, that's an hour and 45 minutes. Not supposed to go on the freeway with it, but I did anyways in the slow lane.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. Just having fun, having an experience, just going for it. I mean, you just rode, for a few hours out of town, doing a few things on a motorcycle that you probably shouldn't have done, but prove that you could do it. Give yourself some confidence, and away you go again. The next time you go somewhere else. And motorcycles are super fun. They're a great mode of transport. We just got a bad reputation for them being dangerous, and wow, the party's just turned up.
Dude, I don't know if I'm ready for that at 10 a.m.
Somebody is.
So what's next for you, Jamie? What's going on this year?
Yeah, so this year I'm doing the usual with my adventure series. So I do one adventure a month somewhere in the world, and we just try to inspire people to go ride, and that's the whole message of MotoGeo. This year, to accompany that, we will be I'm putting quite a bit of effort into the website this year, so we're just going to develop MotoGeo.com into, hopefully in the future, being somewhat of the hub of MotoGeo, whereas quite now the hub of MotoGeo centres around YouTube, really, because that's where we host our videos and whatnot. But I'd like MotoGeo.com to be more than just my adventure series, because as I've discovered over the last decade of riding adventures, I've got a lot of information that I can help people with. Because I get asked the same questions a lot. And so it's about time we start sharing some of that information. I also would really like to make it possible and easier for people to find out how to go on a motorcycle adventure and where to go and what's around. So all part of the new website reshuffle design for me will be to somewhat integrate some experience with information that's really relative to the new motorcyclist and the avid adventure rider.
Awesome.
So I got some work to do on that, but we're working in that direction. And then on the top of that, I would say I have a really big ambition to try to do my next film project. And I started one a few years ago called The Freedom Machine, where I went down to Baja to help an orphanage, and I rode my Ducati Scrambler down there. And still to this day, it's the best production that we've done, but it was also one that took a lot more effort, cost a lot more to produce and took more time. But the quality's better, and I must admit, after doing it once and being involved in the whole process, I would really like to try to do it again. But this time, instead of make a 30-minute film, a short like I made last time, would be to try to achieve a full 90. Or if not a 90-minute movie, maybe like a 6-part TV series or something.
Awesome. And that would that's all to be determined in terms of like plot lines.
Yeah, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Where can we find all of your information, Jamie?
Yeah, man, I'm pretty easy to find. MotoGeo, everything. MotoGeo. So very much like Nat Geo, but with Moto in there. Or MotoGP, but instead of the P, the EO. So yeah, whichever way you want to look at it. But we're right there. MotoGeo, everything, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, website, or just MotoGeo, everything.
Cool.
And like I said, we update content, and a new adventure goes up every month. With that is usually a new motorcycle, so I'll throw a review in there as well that month. And then I've started to look into just trying to do some easier, cheaper videos to produce, because my audience seem to I can't give them enough content. And content always takes time, right? So hopefully in the future, MotoGeo can be more than just Jamie Robinson, and we can have more people out there on the road telling stories. That's where I foresee everything in the future. But right now, my exploits are all on MotoGeo, and let's see what the future brings.
Well, if you're a producer, investor, millionaire, publisher, and you want to help fund Jamie Robinson and his adventures, he is an amazingly charismatic, still young, enthusiastic motorcyclist that is doing great things, I think, for our community. And reach out to him. He's very open, very willing to talk to you, just like he has done with me. So thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Jamie. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And we'll see you hopefully on the next Progressive International Motorcycle Show's interview.
Awesome, dude. Make sure you just go for a ride.